Bienvenidos and welcome back to Puro Pinche Gol, the place we discuss all things USMNT y la selección mexicana. My name is Adrian. I'm joined once again by my co-host Tocayo Adrian. Adrian, what's going on, man?
Hey, how's it going, dude? Over here, injured. I busted my quad playing soccer over the Sunday. And yeah, man, putting some ice on the thing and bored to death with those Molero games. What about you?
I am actually not injured. I did not play soccer this weekend, so I'm good. But that sucks, man. I mean, I know you were just getting back into playing and and you got an injury, so not
What a
good.
fucking I know, jerk.
Yeah,
You're
man, that
laughing at it, dude.
sucks. Hey, man. I mean, laughing is the best medicine, they say. Um,
I guess
But
so.
let's get right into it, man. We witnessed last week two friendly matches for la selección mexicana. One against Guatemala and one against Cameroon. We're gonna be going through our 6 things we learned from those 2 matches. We always obviously said they were juegomolero, so we didn't expect a lot from these matches. We kind of expected Mexico to win them, so we were kind of disappointed on that second match. But we'll get into it. But yeah, I mean, let's start off here. Kind of just a quick recap. Mexico played Guatemala, ended up winning 2-0. Rualjimenez scored a penalty, and Alan de la Rosa scored in like the 84th minute, I believe. And Mexico versus Cameroon ended up 2-2, a match that Mexico tied and rescued Kevin Alvarez late equalizer in the like 95th minute. So we always kind of figured that would be the more difficult of the match. And I mean, Cameroon is one of the big powers in Africa, so I mean, 2-2 isn't all bad, but I mean, obviously, you would assume Mexico would surely, hopefully, win that one. But let's get into it, man. Our first positive of the day. What do you have for us?
All right. So the first positive of today, I would say, is just like you name it, Roberto de la Rosa. I think overall, if you look at both matches, he had a decent performance. I think that, of course, we got to set Lebote Jimenez and Henry Martin aside since they are the starting strikers for the Mexican side. But I think Roberto de la Rosa is a great prospect for Mexico. I think it will be hard for him to go to Europe, but definitely the second spot in eltri is his to take. Sorry. So I really feel that he's getting a hang of playing with eltri. He's getting a hang of playing like diegococca wants him to play, and the fact that he gets a lot of time with Pachuca, it just goes to show that he's probably the next striker in line, if anything, to be the backup for Jimenez. I don't really like the fact that he's as short as I am, so that kind of sucks for playing, uh, making crosses and whatnot. But it isn't like Mexico is well known for having some good air game, right? So, um, but if you put things into perspective and look at the pool of strikers in Mexico, he is definitely the best out there that is available right now.
Yeah, to clarify, Adrian stands at a whopping 4'11", so that's why he's not happy with De La Rosa's height. Um,
Shut
nah,
up.
but yeah, no, you're right. He was definitely one of the bright spots in the match, at least in Guatemala. Ended up getting that goal, and just goes to show you that, like you said, Cocca has had faith in him. He's one of Cocca's. Whenever he releases a lineup, which has been 5 or 6 matches now since he took charge, he's always one of the guaranteed names on that list. So
Hmm.
even if that if we like it or not, it kind of goes to show that there's not a lot of depth in forwards, but for Mexico, but he is a good backup. He's developing into a good solid backup to Bebote Jimenez. So yeah, I mean that's always a positive, especially when you look and consider one of our neutrals for this week for these 2 matches, which is the other forward Raul Jimenez, RJ9. And just the bad luck and the bad situation he's gotten himself into. Starts off the match quickly with getting on the score sheet with a penalty. Granted, it was a penalty, but he took it well. And then just as we thought he'd be getting back into shape from countless injuries, he gets injured again. Um, what else is left to say for Raul Jimenez, man? I mean, it's not a negative because you don't always want to count a player out with when it's been because of an injury, but
Hmm.
it's obviously not a positive. We have it as a neutral here, just because man, he cannot catch a break.
Very unlucky, man. Super unlucky on RJ9's side. I mean, as much as we would like him to get back in shape, I'm just afraid that he's done. He's completely done. I would definitely reconsider my options if I was him. I don't think there's he doesn't have enough name to stay in Europe, especially after the last year and a half that he's been at Wolverhampton. I'll be very wary to see if he can find a spot in ligamx, which he can definitely probably bounce back in ligamx or even MLS. But if I was him, I'll just probably just cut my losses and call it a day, do something else. Um, I know that I sound like a jerk, but I'm just looking out for my guy, man. I mean, I really want him to settle in his retirement as best as he can. He had a very unfortunate injury against David Luiz, and so after that, he hasn't been the same. And I don't think he will ever be, the same. No matter how much he tries, no matter how much he works out
Yeah.
and puts himself out there. I just think it's time for him to move on, and it's time for the three to move on. So that's why we leave it as a neutral, because I don't really think it's a bad thing. I also don't think it's a good thing to see him, play with Mexico.
Yeah, I mean it's not his fault, right? It's not something that he can
Hmm.
control. He was getting called up. I mean that's good for him, but it's not good for the team just because he's just not productive enough. And it just, I mean, now with an injury, just something that unavoidable, or something that happens by chance, right? I mean, it wasn't anything he could have done to avoid it, and it just sucks, man. Like you said, it might just be time to, or he's nearing the time of maybe possibly wrapping it up and hanging his boots for sure, which is unfortunate.
R.I.P.
Yeah, RIP and P. As we analyze these matches, man, and we kind of talk about a negative here, one thing that we noticed as we watched these two matches were the inconsistencies in the starting 11, right? Obviously he wanted to maybe try and experiment, but when you're playing on such an important game like it is this week against the United States in the Nations League semifinal, you kind of want to have something closer to your once ideal, your ideal 11, right? So I think between the two starting lineups, we saw three players that started both matches in Nestor Araujo, Malagón,
Luis
and I
Chavez.
think Herrera, no? Luis Chavez started
Uh,
against Guatemala. I don't think he did.
l- no, he didn't. Yeah, he didn't. You're
No,
right.
so I think it was
Uh
just
huh.
those other three, and even the formation was like completely different, right? He went with
Yeah.
a 5-4-1 against Guatemala, more compact in the middle, and he went with a 3-4-3 against Cameroon. So
Yeah.
again, this could be just because he's experimenting, but I mean, we have it as a negative just because I mean, you need to have something more as your ideal 11. Um, what do you think of this, man? Is he narrowing it down? Do you think any of these players kind of made his life easier and like, hey, man, this guy's probably going to be in my ideal 11 against the U.S.
So, like, first of all, I do want to make a comment about the different formations, right? I do want to uh, pose the question of, do you really need to have five defenders against Guatemala? I mean, was I understand if it is a situation of diegococca trying to impose his playing style, but I still feel that it was unnecessary to have five defenders against Guatemala when that probably could have been the best approach against Cameroon. I think he goes back and forth between 5-4-1 and 3-4-3 because those are the formations that he likes to play, and those are the, I guess, natural changes whenever playing at a match, right? If he wants to be more defensive, he can always move his team to be 5-4-1, and if he wants to go forward, he can reshape it to accommodate for that 3-4-3. But now, going to the starting 11 question, yeah, I think it's a negative because, as you mentioned, between these two matches, you had a big shuffle of players between Guatemala and Cameroon. Only three of them starting on both matches, and out of those three players, I think none of them are part of the A squad, right? They're not part of the A team. Uh, from Mexico, because if you look at Israel Reyes, he's probably gonna get snubbed by either Cesar Montes or Johan Vasquez. Nestor Araujo, he's leaving after these two matches. He's not even in contention or considered to join Mexico for the Nations League or Gold Cup. And then you have Osiel Herrera, who is maybe part of that A team right now, but I don't think he's necessarily the starting left wing
Yeah.
of of
Hmm.
of Mexico. So it's if there's anything that these Juegos Moleros left us behind, is that I think diegococca is far from having an ideal starting 11 for the upcoming matches. He might have an idea as to what he would like to see out there, but the fact that he had maybe 10, I think it was around 10 players out, or just coming in from their European League break, um, or ligamx break, like Sebastian Cordova. I think he was very. These matches weren't beneficial for him. I think these matches leave him with more doubt than answers. I feel that right now, if he is to bring in those 10 players and just put him in as this is my A team, I think he's gonna find himself in a lot of trouble, because I don't necessarily feel that these outstanding players will have the same chemistry that at least some of these guys between Guatemala and Cameroon were able to develop in the last few matches. So the pressure is on for Diego Coca.
Definitely, the pressure is on. That kind of leads us into our next point here. Our next negative, it's the depthness in the squad. We talked about in our preview when he released the large roster, that
Mm-hmm.
there's a quite solid pool of players, right? I mean, he was missing a couple like Chukylozano that you say are going to be in there no matter what, but due to injury or illness, they were out. But these last two games kind of showed that, okay, there's this depth of players. There's a lot he can call from, but at the same time, the quality completely drops between when you're talking of the A team and the rest of these guys, right? I mean, there's a huge difference of Team A for Mexico that has the mainly European-based players versus these B teams, C teams that he uses for these juegomoleros that are, mainly ligamx players, which is kind of the opposite of what it's been in previous years for Mexico when the team has been dominated by ligamx players, right? I mean, ligamx has always produced generally a decent squad for la selección, but now it's kind of that gap. It's just it's shown a lot more between when you have your A team starters and these backup guys that can only beat Guatemala 2-0, or and there was chances for Guatemala to tie or score there, and then that end up tying last minute to Cameroon. So definitely a negative, I'd say, for Cocca to yeah, there's depth, but the depth just completely drops when you're talking from team A to team B and C.
No, I completely agree with you, man. I mean, it's very interesting to see how Mexico has had, as you mentioned, for the longest time had a good baseline of Liga MX players, but it seems that as the years go by, either they drop considerably in quality, or there's just a very limited amount of players that actually are worth noticing. I shared your comments of that there's a huge gap in talent between what we consider to be the A team and the B team, right? I think it's fair to say that whoever is not on that starting 11 for the game against the USMNT or the Gold Cup, it's part of that B or C team, right? I don't think Mexico has the luxury to call a C team. I think it's only we have one team. We have a pool of 23 players that are uh, arguably competitive, and then you have another pool of additional bodies that might come in handy every now and then, but you don't necessarily know if that if that specific individual is going to make a difference in your squad. So this is a very concerning. If this is the team that, or this is the roster of players that we're trying to put out there in 2026, I'm just gonna tell everyone right now. I mean, I'm not a evidente, I'm not a fortune teller, but I can see a green future for Mexico in 2026. I can see Mexico maybe moving on to into the next stage. But if this is the pool of players that we're gonna be using or relying on, there's gonna be some dark times ahead of us, man.
Hopefully your fortune telling skills aren't the best, but yeah, it's definitely yeah. There's a significant drop in quality there between the starters for sure. Um, we're kind of being negative here, but there was a lot of positives to take from these two games. But one thing we kind of talked about and discussed was uh, got to give credit to Cocca in that, yeah, he might not have his starting 11 figured out. And yeah, there's plenty of questions being answered of his, play style and of his convocados and whatnot. But since joining eltri, he hasn't lost. He's obviously had ties, the Clásico against USA, this Clásico against Cameroon, right? But he's still undefeated as coach, and that remained uh, here throughout these two juegomoleros. Will that remain, and will that be the case against USA come this Thursday, the 15th, for that Nations League, where there has to be a winner and a loser? We'll see. But as of right now, diegococca positively marching on, undefeated so far in his tenure in Mexico. I mean, what else
Yeah,
can we say?
it was really hard for me to find another positive on out of these two matches. I think, you know, he hasn't lost a match as you mentioned, and it was. I kind of sort of was leaning towards this more for neutral rather than a positive, but I think we have to give credit what credit is deserved, regardless of the challenges that he has faced, the amount of pressure that he has as being the El Tri's coach, and all the media attention that he receives. I think he has been able to put together a good display on some of these matches. As you mentioned, he tied against Jamaica, Cameroon, and against the USMNT. So it is positive because it gives. I think it fosters a good environment with the pool of players that he has. I think it's good mentality wise for the rest of our three to understand that, hey, even though we might not be doing the best out there, we are still managing to get the results that we want. So it's good in that sense. We really hope that he's able to sustain this specific, I guess, path where he's not losing left and right. But of course, we all know that at some point he has to lose. We really hope that it isn't against the USMNT, because if it is, then I think we can safely say that this is the beginning of the end for Diego Coca.
Honestly, we kind of mentioned that if he doesn't win one of the tournaments this summer, the Nations League or the Gold Cup, he's out. I
Yeah.
I think if he loses against USA against the Nations League, he might be out. There might be a panic firing and just say, he's not going to do it in the Gold Cup if we keep him in. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
I mean that I really hope that that's not the case. I mean, if he doesn't win, just let him finish the Gold Cup, because who are you gonna bring, man? I mean, you don't have a firefighter ready to jump in and move on with Diego Coca. Like, if you're gonna try to put, I don't know, the Lilini, the guy that they just hired for managing the sub, I guess the sub 20, sub 23s, and sub
20s, yeah.
18, yeah, teams in Mexico. Andres Lilini, I don't think that's a good choice. I mean, you're just gonna essentially burn him too. I really hope that Doña Fede and her sequaces are able to understand that, okay, we're gonna make a change, but let's make it gradually. Let's at least copy something that is good from the USSF, which is, why put pressure on a coach that might not, that you might not even like, and rush him to get into a two high caliber matches for him to be, pretty much treading water and thinking or fighting for his permanency, right? So I really
Yeah,
hope Doña
good
Fede
point.
thinks twice before pulling the trigger. But I mean, you know how Doña Fede is.
Yeah, yeah, man, they're relentless. Um, so the last time we kind of took away from these matches, man, and hate to end it on a negative, but there was not a lot of positives from these two matches.
Hmm.
Um, Something that we discussed a lot in our preview episode, how Guillermo Ochoa throughout all these years, almost maybe 20 years as the main, probably not 20, but 15 years as the main coach or the main goalie
Hmm.
there for for Mexico, and how no one has been able to come up through the ranks and surpassed him for that number one spot. We have given our praises here and now, and then for Malagon, sometimes he has really well performances, but even more so for Carlos Acevedo, who we really like on his club team, and we've seen solid performances from him on the national team. But the negative we're going at is they're given a chance. Malagon really, it was Acevedo didn't play.
Mm-hmm.
I think he picked up an injury right before the matches, right?
Mm-hmm.
But Malagon was given a chance to kind of maybe make a name for himself and say, "Hey, this is going to be my chance to surpass and maybe take the starting lineup from Guillermo Ochoa." But when these backup goalies, and we've seen it all throughout Ochoa's career, Talavera, we're seeing it now with Malagon, Acevedo. Who was the Guadalajara keeper for a while that was kind of competing with him?
Rodolfo Cota or
Cota, yeah. I
Michel.
mean, Micha, yeah, back when he started, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
when Guillermo Ochoa was coming through the ranks. All the throughout the years, we've seen so many keepers, and none of them have been able to, take Ochoa's spot. And Ochoa's what, 36, 37, maybe even older now. When are we going to see somebody step up and have a good, solid performance for a three consistently, man? I mean, Ochoa can't be there forever.
No, I totally agree with you, man. It's like Mexico cannot escape the Ochoa conundrum right now. Um, you and I have expressed this openly. Like we don't have anything against Ochoa. We think that he's a great keeper, and right now he's arguably the best one out there for Mexico. But Mexico needs a generational change on this specific position. I don't think Ochoa is a solid choice for 2026. I think it's gonna come and bite Mexico in the butt if we wait until then to make a change. But at the same time, it's like you give these guys a chance and they stumble in the most ridiculous way, right? Malagon, I don't think he's a bad keeper. I think he still has a lot to grow, but we also have to keep in this in consideration is we say they still need to grow, but these are 25-year-old players, man. What else or how much more we can wait for them to grow and settle into a position or into the role that they're meant to cover? I mean, we don't have any options. They don't have any time. Like at this point in time, they should be reaching almost the peak of their career, right? And we're still
Mm-hmm.
making excuses for them, even for Acevedo. So it was very unfortunate and unlucky for Acevedo to get injured while warming up against Cameroon because he was supposed to start against Cameroon, and that's the whole reason why Toño Rodriguez went in after after Malagon. But it's just it's difficult to see. It's a difficult pill to swallow. I don't have the answer for this. I don't think even Doña Fede really understands what's the predicament that we're facing here. That we don't really have a go-to replacement for Guillermo Ochoa, and I don't think we're doing anything about it. I think we're just gonna roll with the punches, keep on playing Ochoa as much as we can. Hopefully, hoping that I guess he remains, healthy and playing at a high level. I mean, if he's able to keep his spot in Serie A for the next 2 years, I think it will be really difficult to make a case against him. But then, I mean, even then, even if he's able to, keep his spot in Serie A and keep on playing at this high level, what are we doing, right? We don't have any other prospect that is scheduled to go into Europe at any
Right.
point in time. And even if there's one, right, Doña Fede isn't doing anything to lure those dual nationals that are out there that have a chance to actually go and play
Mm-hmm.
outside of United States and Mexico. So Mexico is in a very dire position right now when it comes to the goalie role, and I don't think there's anything that there isn't a thing that we can do right now that is going to solve the problem in the short term.
Yeah, it might end up being a 2010 repeat World Cup South Africa when they started a 41-year-old Conejo Perez. It might be similar starting a 39, 40-year-old Guillermo Ochoa in the next World Cup. The only difference is, like you said, I mean, if he's able to maintain that quality playing time in Serie A, I mean, hell, we know the longevity that goalies can have. We saw that
Yeah.
with Buffon.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, if he could keep that, like you said, though, when it is time for him to hang his boots, maybe after the World Cup, who's going to step up? There's no one
Exactly.
at this point.
No.
So yeah, bad situation to be in there for a three, but I mean, shit. Hopefully, somebody's able to step it up. Again, unlucky with Acevedo. Kind of like our Rualjimenez nueve, no? He got injured, so it
Yeah,
was something unavoidable. But yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens with those guys.
we can wait
Um,
forever, man. I mean, we
yeah,
just can't. Hmm.
yeah. I mean, got to wait to 2026, I guess. Um, Adrian, man, we all know we have a very very important match this week for this channel. Who our channel covers USA and Mexico. We
Hmm.
have an important summer ahead of us here for USMNT and La Selección Mexicana. As we wrap up here, man, where can our listeners find us?
They can always find us on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, and turn on the notifications. You can also find us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts on. Lastly but not least, you can also find us on Instagram and Twitter. We post stuff every now and then.
Yes, sir. Make sure to follow us. We're going to be dropping later this week before the big game our preview episode. What we expect, our starting 11 expectations and our formation expectations, results, etc., etc. So make sure you stick it here with Puro Pinche Gol, and let us know in the comments below for sure. How did you see Mexico in these two matches? Did they surprise you in how good they were or how bad they were? Did diegococca's formation surprise you? What do you predict? Starting 11 will be against the USA, and how do you think Mexico will handle a substantially better opposition than the two matches the two opponents they played here? Love to hear from you guys, and love reading y'all's comments. So yeah, make sure you drop some comments below. Um, Adrian, man, hope you feel better with your injury. It's been another good one here with you, brother. I'll see you in the
Likewise,
next one,
man.
man.
Have a good one. Bye.
See ya, man. See ya.